Hello, my name is Shelby Rush, and I'll be teaching you about why our English language learners place into special education classrooms. And we'll be talking about the reasons why they are being placed in these classrooms and ways we could help these students not be misplaced in a certain classroom. So here are some crazy facts about English language learners. In 2009-2010, English language learners, there were 9.7% of students enrolled into public schools, but 8.3% served under the IDEA. So that means only 1.4% was mainstreamed in a general education classroom. And the question is, did those students actually have a disability or not? That is that's a huge percentage going into special education. Students are getting placed because teachers assume students are not achieving solely because of language difference, but it's just because of a language barrier. It's not necessarily a disability. Dropout rates are really high compared to non-English language learners. They are 15 to 20% higher than the overall non-English language learner, and students are being placed in special education start to have behavior problems, failure to complete work, and they're not on grade level and they're falling behind, and that's what we need to help with. By 2030, our population of ELL students will increase to 40%. So it's great that there are more English language learners coming into the public schools, but we need to learn and evaluate these students to make sure that they are actually getting the education that they need. So when I researched this topic, I wanted to figure out why these students are being placed into special education, and these are some misconceptions of why these students were getting IEPs and evaluated, and teachers thought they had a disability. So reason one is teachers assume a language barrier is a disability. That is not the case. There are 13 disabilities under the IDEA, and language is not one of them. There is speech impediment, blind, deafness, there's also brain injury, Down syndrome, and autism. The language is not a disability. Reason two is teachers are not taught how to teach English language learners. So English language learners are coming into the classrooms, and teachers don't understand and don't know how to accommodate for these students, what they could do to help them in a general education classroom. And that's why we need more professional development on this. Reason three is the last one. Students are not used to the U.S. customs and expectations, so they have different culture backgrounds. At the last school, if they were in a different country, they might not know how to line up. Their school probably ended at like 12 o'clock instead of 2:40, so it is definitely a different custom to them, and they have to learn U.S. expectations. The chart below, it talks about like what a teacher might observe from a student. So if a student has trouble following directions, if it's an ELL student, that means they just don't know enough English to understand how to follow those directions, or they do not demonstrate the context given or the directions and procedures. So again, they don't know how to line up. They haven't done that before, so they don't know to push in their chair and walk quietly into the line, and they might not even know where you're going. If it's a disability, then these students can't process the entire set of directions with sufficient speed. It's distracting. They maybe have memory limitations, and they're not able to understand the temporal or spatial concepts. Now that I have taught you the reasons why students are getting misplaced into education, and these are some ways that we could prevent this from happening. We need to be able to differentiate instruction in the classroom and also assessments. When students come into public schools, we need to survey the family, see what their first language is, what culture do they come from, and from that we can determine whether or not they need to take the access tests, which test English language students on writing, speaking, listening, and reading comprehension in English. It rates the students from levels 1 to 5, level 1 being the lowest, which means the student does not have any English vocabulary, and then all the way to to level 5, level 5 means they're close to exiting the program, that they have a lot of English vocabulary and it's not going to prevent them from understanding the content in a general education classroom. What I like to use is the chart, the colorful chart here. It talks about what students or what teachers could do for the students in both listening, speaking, reading, and comprehension, like provide pictures for the students, sentence frames, and videos, presentations to help the students better understand a certain content. We can also use bilingual books and maybe kindergarten English level books just to learn that vocabulary. Another way to help English language learners in a general education classroom is we can integrate culture into the curriculum. And so what I have for you is a chart that tells us what we could do in all the subject areas. And culture is social studies standards. So I didn't include social studies on here because all these activities would be considered social studies as well. For math, we could have games from different countries. There is a game that's from Kenya, and it's learning about the different shapes and learning about vocabulary such as adjacent. So students learn that vocabulary, and they're also playing a game, a unique game from a different country. There's also a book called Math Games Activities Around the World. So teachers could integrate whatever standard they're learning and maybe use some of those games during their lessons. And also you can just learn about different materials that other cultures have used, like the abacus calculator. In science, we're actually in 3rd grade, we're talking about weather and climate zones, so we could learn about the climate zones in different parts of the country. And the world on the world map as well, and we can learn about severe weather too in different countries and how that affected the people there. You can also talk about engineering and structure, about different structures in other countries, such as like the Eiffel Tower and how that was built. Also, you can teach the students about animals and adaptations from around the world as well. In language arts, we actually have a curriculum. It's called Engage New York, and this curriculum integrates culture already. So we read a bunch of different books from other countries, such as Rain School, which takes place in Chad, Africa. Nazarene Secret School takes place in Afghanistan, and the Biblioburo takes place in Argentina. In writing, you could do a would you rather, like would you rather live in this country or versus a different country and why, and that would be your opinion piece. They can also do a country report, so that would be an informational text that they could do. Having a class culture environment not only helps your English language students, but helps the whole classroom become comfortable and welcoming to all students. In the beginning of the year, I always do all about me bags, and we learn about each student. They decorate their bag, they put pictures on there, they bring some toys or things they're interested from home or something about their family, and they share it with the whole class, and the students just get really engaged and want to know more about you, and they ask so many questions. Another thing we do in our class is we have a travel theme. So in my classroom, I have hot air balloons, airplanes, and I have a world map in there. I have pictures of different countries and different structures, and we like to look at those pictures when we're talking about a certain country as well, if we're reading a book. We also been pinpointing books and pinning them on the world map and basically talking about where we have traveled to by reading one of the books in our curriculum. So we've already been to like Chad, Africa, Afghanistan, eastern part of Kentucky, the mountains. Another thing we do every single day is a classroom meeting. We do this all the time, and it only takes up to 5 to 10 minutes, and we just have a question of the day, and each student gets to share their answer, and we just get to know each other that way, which is awesome. So to summarize what I've just taught you today is we need to evaluate students and assess them. We need to make sure that they are not just being placed into special education because they don't understand English. It is actually because they have a disability. We want to prevent so many dropouts, and this is and the reason why they're dropping out is they're falling behind in their education because they're being placed in classrooms they don't need to be. We want to place students where they will benefit and differentiate instruction. We want to create a class culture and integrate culture into our curriculum. Thank you for listening.